This is Fred Richani of TSC News here to recap UFC 207, Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes. Ronda Rousey's first fight back in over a year since that devastating Holly Holm loss. Now, Ronda Rousey going into this fight December 30th, 2016, the final UFC event of 2016, what might be her retirement fight should it not go her way. She did zero media. She did zero press conferences, zero interviews, barely did UFC Embedded. Okay, she did the public weigh-ins, that was cool, but for the most part, she cut a deal with the UFC, a sweetheart deal, to just do no media. Because she wanted to train, and she wanted to focus, and she was pissed off that the media allegedly turned on her and said bad things about her, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, she had the same coach as she had last time for the Holly Holm fight. Edmund Targaryen, whatever the hell his damn name is, who is widely regarded as the worst, quote-unquote, major head coach in all of MMA to coach actual name fighters fighting in the UFC. You could ask around in fighter circles. So, she hasn't changed camps. She hasn't changed coaches. She got herself in tremendous physical condition. She allegedly shut out all these distractions. Meanwhile, Amanda Nunes is training with the best in the world. Day in, day out, ATT. Plugging the holes in her game. Studying Ronda Rousey. Doing her thing. Riding high off of the momentum of beating Miesha Tate for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. So here we are. UFC 207, Las Vegas, Nevada. T-Mobile Arena. Amanda Nunes has a chance to either crumble under the pressure or make the most out of this golden freaking ticket. And boy, you better believe she did, because it took 48 seconds. Not 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Not 3 minutes and 48 seconds. Not 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Not 1 minute and 48 seconds. Not 48 minutes. 48 seconds into the very first round. Amanda Nunes stunned and gunned Ronda Rousey with some lefts, with some rights, and it was good night. Ronda Rousey got virtually no offense in. Literally, from the first punch she took, that was it. She was done. She was starting to go out on her feet. She just got brutalized. Okay, she made a half-hearted, half-assed attempt to go for her trademark judo throw, if you even want to call it that, or some type of takedown attempt. I don't know. Look, I'm not a fighter. I know a lot of fighters. I talk to fighters on a fairly regular basis, former fighters on a fairly regular basis, to continue to progress my understanding of the sport. But I recall past Ronda Rousey fights where she was able to rush in and at least work for the takedown, get the girl she was fighting down, and do some work on the ground, obviously. Now, she didn't rush in for the takedown. She was patient in some way. But I don't know. I don't know if it was the fact that she was reluctant to go for a takedown at first. I don't know if it was the fact that she just can't take a punch, and the second she got hit, she just panicked. Bad training. I don't know what it is, but all I can say is, from what I saw inside the octagon tonight, it was a shot fighter. It was a fighter who's done, a fighter whose best days are behind them, a fighter who, unless she looks in the mirror, says, I got to get rid of some of these douchebag yes men in my life, and I got to actually go to a real team like ATT, like Jackson's MMA, like Trash Star with George St. Pierre and Firas Zahabi. Anywhere that is a credible MMA gym. Until she does that, I don't see Ronda Rousey coming back. I just don't. And look, mentally, she's been in a dark place the last year. She talked about having suicidal thoughts on the Ellen Show, which is pretty sad. It's nothing to joke about here. And you wonder, for somebody like that who's gone through a lot in their life, losing their dad at a young age, and the tension with her mom and her coach and everything else. I mean, it's just, look, Conor McGregor, great fighter. Huge draw like Ronda Rousey, drew a worldwide audience. He lost to Nate Diaz. And you can make the argument that loss was, quote-unquote, a lot more embarrassing than Rousey losing to Holly Holm. Rousey lost to the number one contender. Nate Diaz at the time was a late replacement and a 5-5 fighter against Conor McGregor. McGregor came back, did his thing, back on top of the world, counting his money. Ronda Rousey has one loss. We don't see her for a year. She comes back, and she looks like hell. And the ironic thing is, it's almost 5 years to the day. I think it might have even been 5 years to the day of Brock Lesnar fighting what was at the time his last UFC fight on a Friday, no less, against Alistair Overeem. And the second he got hit, he just crumbled to the ground. But the difference between Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey is Brock Lesnar's health robbed him of his prime. Brock Lesnar had diverticulitis. He was a phenom too. He was at the time the biggest draw the UFC had ever seen. A couple of bad fights, a terrible bout with diverticulitis, and Brock Lesnar, just as quickly as he came in and made impact, was gone from the sport of mixed martial arts. Now, Rousey, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have a physical ailment, but sometimes it's not about what you do physically. It's about up here. And up here, Amanda Nunes was the better fighter. Right here, with these fists, Amanda Nunes was the better fighter. Waxed Ronda Rousey in 48 seconds. Let's let Amanda Nunes have her moment. Much respect to her, but my God, it's a sad day. A sad day in MMA to see Ronda Rousey get waxed like that. It's one thing if it was a hard-fought battle, she was fighting for a takedown, and then she just got clipped. It's another thing to just have virtually no offense and get destroyed like that. It looked like she didn't belong. So we'll see what happens with Ronda Rousey, but a sad day for her fans, a sad day for MMA, one of the biggest draws and biggest stars of all time. Look, if she retires tomorrow or right now, she'll still be considered one of the greatest. I don't want to hear this BS of, oh, she was always a fraud, she was always a phony, No, she wasn't. She was the right girl at the right place at the right time, but also a great athlete who opened many doors in this sport. Man, just sad. But speaking of people that had their ish together mentally and physically, Cody No Love Garbrandt, the kid from Ohio who wrote to Uriah Faber once on Twitter, hey man, I'm going to train with you. Years later, to end up training at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California with his idol Uriah Faber. Just a couple weeks after Uriah Faber retiring in his hometown of Sacramento, he watches his protege, his brodege, Cody Garbrandt, dominate the Dominator Dominick Cruz, his greatest rival, his camp's greatest rival, to win the UFC Bantamweight Championship via unanimous decision. Tremendous fight. This was very reminiscent throughout the fight of Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. The first couple of rounds where, Anderson Silva's clowning around and making a mockery out of Chris Weidman. But of course, we all know how that fight ended. Anderson Silva lost, and the middleweight division was never the same again. Now, Cody Garbrandt did not have an Anderson Silva moment. He did not get knocked out. He did not get caught when he was showboating. There were a couple times he dropped Dominic, and I thought, okay, instead of putting your hands on your hips and waiting for him to get up, maybe you should try to go for the kill, which Joe Rogan mentioned on the broadcast. But throughout 5 rounds, the dude dominated. He dominated. He might have lost round 2. He might have lost round 5 because he was coasting a little bit. But overall, dare I say, for a guy his experience level, 10 professional fights in, not a lot of time in the UFC, to go from Takeya Mizugaki to Dominick Cruz and to dominate one of the greatest fighters of all time, my God, this speaks volumes to Cody Garbrandt's development. This speaks volumes about his coaches, the dudes at Team Alpha Male. Well done, Cody Garbrandt. He won this. Official scores were 48-46, 48-47, 48-46. This fight saved the show. You take this fight away from the pay-per-view, and you have that 48-second mess on top of some subpar fights with some guy named Ray Borg, who's not related to Cyborg, and Dong Young Kim. Yeah, this wasn't a great pay-per-view if you take away that fight. But this fight was on that card, and it delivered. I would love to see a rematch down the road, but TJ Dillashaw, he dominated John Lineker, surprisingly dominated. I thought he'd win, but he dominated John Lineker, took him down, nice transitions, mixed it up. He looked great, and he called out Dominick Cruz And he said, okay, if Cody wins, I'll fight whoever. I want that belt. Stop ducking me. I want that belt. This ish is rigged if I don't get a title shot. I want that belt. So then Cody says, come at me, MFR. But that's not even the biggest moment of Cody Garbrandt's night. Called out TJ, won the belt. On top of all that, a young man named Maddox accompanied him to the cage who fought leukemia. He promised Maddox that he would win the belt for him. He put the belt around the kid's waist. The kid looked so freaking happy. Why wouldn't he be? His idol, his buddy. Now, the top bantamweight in the world, one of the top fighters in the world, just put the UFC gold around his waist. It was a great moment. It was a star-making performance for Cody Garbrandt. Much respect to him. Much respect to Dominick Cruz for him to come back from all these injuries, all this adversity, to dominate, no pun intended, once more before running into the buzzsaw that is Cody Garbrandt. TJ Dillashaw, as I mentioned, dominated John Lineker via unanimous decision. 30-26, 30-26, 30-26. It was a legit performance, one of his best ever, besides the performances against Barao. Dong Young Kim defeated Tarek Saffiedine via split decision. Close fight, not an entertaining fight. Ray Borg beat Luis Smolka via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-26, 30-26. And also not a great fight. We had Neil Magny defeat Johnny Hendricks on the prelims, 29-28 across the board via unanimous decision. I thought Hendricks slightly won. He did have more top control. He did get the takedowns, but he didn't do much with the takedowns. And something I've seen the last few years in MMA, it used to be the guys like John Fitch back in the day in UFC, Gray Maynard. They take dudes down, they hold them down. Sometimes they don't do the most, but they score because they take them down and they're just on top of these dudes. Whereas now, if you take a dude down and you don't do a lot, judges aren't going to score for you as often as they used to. Hell, Johnny Hendricks had this happen to him in his second fight with Robbie Lawler. So who should know better than Johnny Hendricks that just because you get the takedown doesn't mean you're automatically going to get points and the win. We had Antonio Carlos Jr. defeat Marvin Vettori via unanimous decision. We had Alex Garcia knock out Mike Pyle brutally in round number 1. That may be the end of him, which is unfortunate. It was a brutal knockout. Hopefully Mike Pyle is okay. Nico Price submitted Brandon Thatch in round 1 with an arm triangle choke. And I missed the Fight Pass main event, or I guess the only fight in Fight Pass, Alex Oliveira and Tim Means, but apparently that was a no contest due to illegal knees, according to my buddy Alan Wu, but I'll have to go back and check that out, or not. So overall, I got to say, a tremendously eventful night for the UFC. One that's definitely going to change the landscape of MMA right now. On one hand, you got Cody Garbrandt, who is an absolute stud. A stud. And if he can continue to win in exciting fashion while mixing it up with the showmanship. I mean, this dude was doing push-ups in the middle of the fight. He was dancing. He was shimmying. I mean, he was doing everything. And he took Dominick Cruz's best shots. It was tremendous. I don't know if he's going to be able to get away with that with TJ Dillashaw or Dominick Cruz again, but man, if this dude can continue to develop, continue to improve, most importantly, continue to win and win impressively, superstar. Ronda Rousey, I doubt she comes back. Amanda Nunes, while she is a really likable person, while she said, hey, forget about Ronda Rousey, we got a lot of great girls in this division. At the end of the day, she ain't Ronda Rousey. At the end of the day, while she's got a great story herself, I don't know if fans are going to be taking a liking to her. I don't know if fans are going to be lining up to buy Amanda Nunes fights now. Chris Cyborg destroyed Gina Carano, but Gina Carano's fans that she drew didn't automatically come to Cyborg back in the day. In fact, Cyborg didn't really draw all that well in Strikeforce after beating Gina Carano. It was Gina Carano who was the star. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think it's going to be a tough year for the UFC in 2017. Not a lot of marquee fights on the horizon. With Ronda gone, yeah, they lucked into Cody Garbrandt, but we'll see what happens with him. Conor McGregor, I don't think he's going to be back at least until the spring, maybe the summer. He's having a child. Congratulations to him and his girlfriend. So if Conor McGregor's your only real proven draw right now, consistent draw right now, well, the onus is going to be on the UFC to make some stars. So far, so good with Cody Garbrandt. We'll see what they do next. But this is also reportedly Mike Goldberg's final night with the UFC. I know the guy gets a lot of flack, and occasionally he has a lot of silly flubs that are virtually identical. but the dude's been the voice of the UFC, much like Jim Ross was the voice of WWE for many, many years. 20 years to be exact. And if the rumors are true that he's going to be replaced by Jim Rome, of all people, with all due respect to Jim Rome, I respect the guy. He's damn good on TV and radio, but he's not a play-by-play guy. He doesn't fit that Mike Goldberg, Jim Ross, Michael Cole mold. I just don't see it. Who knows? A lot can change in the next few months because reportedly, if Jim Rome is going to start with UFC, it's probably not going to be till the summer. And who knows? Maybe they'll decide to keep Mike Goldberg. I think it'd be a big mistake to dump him. But hey, UFC's loss might be WWE's gain. Maybe we'll see Mike Goldberg on SmackDown or Raw one of these days. We'll see. But folks, I want to hear from you. What did you think about UFC 207? What do you think about Ronda Rousey's future? What do you think about Amanda Nunes' future? Who's next for Amanda Nunes? What do you think about the ridiculous notion that Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandamy, or whatever her name is a historical fight? I saw a video package during this pay-per-view hyping the February pay-per-view of Holly Holm versus Jermaine Randonamy, or whatever her name is, for the fake 140-pound title. Wow, or 145-pound title. Whatever weight it is, it's a fake belt. Either way, I want to hear your thoughts on women's MMA, your thoughts on the bantamweight division. Let me know. Leave a comment below. Tweet us, Facebook us. Do what you got to do. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. Please share this with all your friends. And until next time, as always, enjoy the fights.